Hey guys, it's 258. Today we're gonna read A Weekend Made for Spike by Path of Cloud. Gonna read chapter 1. Without further ado, let's start with chapter 1. Friday. Twilight, darling, I'm over here. A white unicorn beckoned. She was sitting at a small table on an outside patio. She had long, smooth, furry legs, a curvy ass, and large, perky breasts. She wore a flowing white sleeveless dress that ended before her knees. It had a light sapphire blue trim that matched her eyes, and purple swirls stemmed from the trim matching her expertly styled mane, tail, and fingernails. Hey Rarity, a purple unicorn waved, answering her friend's call. She walked over to the table on her own long legs, a much smaller rear, and a nice playful set of medium-sized breasts. She was sporting her normal purple and pink sweater vest, as well as pink and purple striped miniskirt. So, Twilight, what do you want to talk to me about? Also, I love your choice of a rendezvous. Such a quaint little restaurant. Rarity sipped on a cup of tea she had ordered while waiting for Twilight. I wanted to thank you again for offering to watch Spike while I'm in Canterlot this weekend. You're welcome, dear. It's no big deal, really. Actually, that's not the only reason I asked you here. Oh, she perked up, hoping for some juicy gossip. How to put this? I don't want you to overwork Spike while he's staying with you, Twilight said, nervously voicing her concern. Excuse me? Rarity asked, outraged at the accusation. Come on, Rarity, you know that you have a habit of using Spike's feelings towards you to get your favors and work out of him. He'd move your boutique across town if it'd make you happy. I don't want him coming home Monday night and being too exhausted to move Tuesday, Twilight said, abandoning her nervousness and adapting a blunt tone. I do not take advantage of him. He does stuff for you. He does stuff for you too, Rarity said, her voice escalating to match her rising offense. He's my assistant, and I never push him too far, nor does he do it for free. He gets food, a place to live, and payment for his assistance. Rarity, I'm not trying to offend you, but you have to be aware of the length Spike goes for you. You're not blind, and we both know you're too smart to be oblivious of it. Even though she had been trying not to, she knew that she sounded accusing and angry, in part because she was, but also because Rarity had attempted to claim that Twilight used Spike. Why don't you just ask one of the other girls to watch him then? Rarity slammed her fist against the table. He's 17 and he wanted to be left alone. He only agreed to stay with you because it was you. Fine, I'll show you. Spike won't lift a finger this weekend. I'll wait on him for a change. Rarity got up and stormed off. Too easy, just have to know which buttons to push. I hope Spike appreciates this chance to show Rarity how hard it is to wait on someone. Hand and hoof, or I guess in this case, hand and claw. A change of perspective is always good for a relationship after all. At least that's what my book says. And I've never doubted my books before. Twilight tapped her fingers together, proud of how well her plan was going. She ordered breakfast, blissfully unaware of just how well her plan would work. Knock, knock, knock. The door to Carousel Boutique swung open and in walked a tall figure. Rarity, are you in here? Why is it so dark? The figure asked, his strong voice piercing through the darkness. The door slammed behind the figure and the light flickered. The figure was a tall, amethyst purple dragon with large, leathery wings that draped down his back and green spikes running down his head. Along his back and all the way to the tip of his tail, he wore a black coat with emerald green flames raging upwards into the darkness, a tan t-shirt made to look like a parchment, black dress jeans, and a green knapsack slung over his back. Hello, master, a sweet voice said, gracing his ears. Spike swung around and froze. In front of him stood the love of his life, his goddess, and while he had been looking for her, he hadn't expected this. She was wearing a French maid outfit that showed off her bountiful cleavage and ended in an extremely short skirt, revealing her long legs and black, intricate stockings. Here, master, let me take your bag. Rarity took Spike's bag from his back and placed it on a shelf near her couch. She was holding back a laugh as she did so. She knew Spike would react like this when he saw her in her new, hand-sewn and maid outfit. In fact, she had spent all day just waiting to show it off to him. She enjoyed teasing him. He was just so cute when he was nervous. So, master, can I get you anything or do anything for you? Spike snapped out of his comatose state. Rarity, why do you keep calling me master? I keep calling you master because until Twilight comes back Monday, I'm your maid and you're my master. Why? Rarity was a bit surprised. She had expected him to be too focused on her new look to even care. I thought it would be a nice change of pace. You always help me out and wait on me, hand and claw, after all. How did you come to that conclusion? She couldn't believe how determined he was not to let it go. Twilight might have mentioned that I overwork you sometimes, and I may have wanted to prove her wrong. Suddenly Spike seemed disappointed. Oh, he sounded sad. Rarity, look, you don't have to do this to prove anything. I work hard for you because I want to. There's nothing to feel guilty about. Rarity was shocked. Here he was given the opportunity to have the mare of his dreams wait on him for an entire weekend, and he was telling her not to? He even said she had nothing to feel guilty about. She had never mentioned feeling guilty. How dare he assume such a thing? She was not letting him off the hook that easily. Master, I insist. Until Twilight picks you up Monday, I'll do whatever you ask of me. I'll make you meals, fetch you drinks, and any other order you can think of. Rarity, it's not necessary. You can just go, put on your normal clothes, and we'll enjoy a normal weekend. Make a few dresses, hunt for gems, and I can help you with the chores around here. He was doing it again. He was trying to do all the work and get nothing in return. He was undermining not only her authority, but her generosity and the thought she had put into his special weekend. Master, this is not up for debate. And what if I order you to do it? She hadn't expected this response, but enough was enough. If you do that, I won't talk to you for the rest of the weekend, maybe even ever again. This is a gift from me, Master, and I won't have you throwing it away like some tacky shirt. Spike was starting to realize just how serious Rarity was about this. Still, he had no interest in her pretending to care for him while she pranced around and played maid. He wanted her to love him like he had loved her all these years, not just feel obligated to pay him back. He knew that if he came up with an order insane enough she wouldn't fulfill it, then she would have to give up this act. She might be angry with him for a bit, but she'd get over it before the weekend ended. They could spend the rest of the time together, getting closer just as he had hoped. So, you complete any order then? Yes. Finally, he was seeing how amazing her gift was. And what if you refuse? I won't refuse. If you do, will you agree to let this be a normal weekend? Sure, but I'm not going to falter, Master. Rarity's confidence and excitement soared. This was going to be fun. Spike took a seat on the couch. I order you to remove your bra and panties. Spike smirked at his cleverness. Sure, it wasn't the politest thing to order, nor would she be happy with him, but it was for the best. Now she could just refuse, forgive him in a few hours, and then they could enjoy their weekend. What? Rarity was taken by complete surprise. She had never expected such a vulgar request from Spike with his boyish charm. I said, take your bra and panties off, right here in front of me. In fact, give them to me. You're not allowed to wear any until Twilight picks me up. Or you could refuse, and we could have a nice quiet weekend. Spike stuck his hand out, waiting. This wouldn't doubt. Rarity gave in. Of course, Master. She removed her bra first, unbuttoning it from the back and pulling it through the front of her shirt. Next, she carefully slid her panties down her legs, making sure to give nothing away, and stepped out of them once they were on the floor. She bent down and picked them up. She then placed both pieces of her lingerie in Spike's hand. She couldn't believe she had just done that, and worse yet, how much she'd enjoyed doing something so dirty in front of Spike. Once again, Spike was in a state of shock as he watched the mare of his dreams remove her underwear while keeping her clothes on. He felt them shoved into his hands. He looked down and felt something wet. He put the bra on his legs and lifted the panties up to the light. There was a wet spot in the middle where her flower met the fabric. She had gotten aroused from being humiliated and degraded like that, so I couldn't believe it. He looked up at his love and realized she was watching him inspect her panties. Very good. Start cleaning up in here. Unable to turn away, Rarity watched as Spike looked over her panties. She had seen the wet spot almost instantly. She hoped Spike would see it, point it out even. She didn't know where this was coming from. She was a lady, and ladies didn't act like this. Even as she went about cleaning the room, she was bending over way further than necessary to do the cleaning and was using her tail to barely cover herself. Spike had a perfect view of her luscious ass and diamond-shaped cutie mark. All he had to do to see everything was order her to move her tail. It would be so easy for him to do, and it would be so embarrassing, so demeaning, and so damn hot. She could feel the heat in her marehood increase as her arousal started dripping. Maybe he'd notice, maybe he'd make her lick the mess up with her tongue, or maybe he'd punish her for being so dirty. She had to have more, she needed it. She could feel her tits stiffen as if begging to give him something else to notice about her naughty little body. Spike was sitting on the couch, losing his mind. Every time she bent over, he would almost catch a glimpse of her. No, he had to focus. He couldn't let his imagination wander off to that amazing mark on her. Focus! How could he salvage the situation and get everything back to normal? Rarity, you're doing great, but could you go make dinner? I'm feeling a bit hungry. Of course, Master. Rarity bowed to Spike and headed into the kitchen. Rarity couldn't believe how disappointed she was as she started on dinner. Here, she had given him a chance to completely take advantage of her, and instead he had just sat there staring at her. Why couldn't he let go and give into his desire and wants? He was just being such a gentle Drake about it. He was being a gentle Drake. The characteristics she wanted that every single would-be suitor failed to achieve. In fact, why was she so interested in being degraded and used by Spike? She had never felt this way with anyone before, and Blue Blood had humiliated her to no end. So why then did she want Spike to treat her like some plaything? Maybe if she thought about the differences between Spike and Blue Blood, she'd have her answer. Blue Blood was a prince, a pompous, arrogant jerk, a complete jackass, narcissistic to no end, and a total tool. Spike was a dragon, a gentle Drake in fact. He was kind, he constantly put others' needs in front of his own, and she loved him. Wait, what was that last one? No, that can't be right. Sure, he was cute, more so though. He was handsome and he was kind, always being attentive to her needs, but she couldn't love him, could she? Is that why she enjoyed teasing him so much? Why she had instantly volunteered to watch him? Why she had been so offended by Twilight's accusation of her using him? Why she had gone to such great lengths to prove Twilight wrong? Well, so what if she loved a dragon? She wasn't going to let him off the hook that easily. She would just have to push until he realized on his own that she wanted him to take charge of her. By the end of the weekend, he was going to degrade her, humiliate her, use her, and make love to her. Spike sat in the living room trying to find an answer to his dilemma. Nothing so far had come close to even being the slightest bit feasible. Maid, Rarity had left him more aroused than he'd ever been, and it had only been an hour at most. How could he possibly last a whole weekend with her like this? He'd end up saying or doing something stupid, and then she'd never talk to him again. All the years he spent building the relationship and loving her, just hoping that one day she'd love him back, would be wasted due to one damn weekend. He could try to order her to do something worse than walking around without underwear, but she'd never comply, and she'd hate him forever. He could try to give her the bra and panties back, but she would think he was going back on his order. That would be just as bad as ordering her to stop being his maid, and then she might never talk to him again. How did she think becoming his maid was a good idea in the first place? Sure, Twilight had put the idea she overworked back into her head, but he knew she didn't tell her to dress up as a maid and let him play master all weekend. Maybe she did it because she felt genuinely guilty about using him. Maybe she was worried that he wouldn't love her if she just accepted his help without some kind of reward. Why would she care if he loved her though? Unless she loved him. No, that was crazy. Sure, he wanted her to love him more than anything, but he was nowhere near good enough for her. What could she see in some punk of a dragon after all? Master, dinner is ready. Spike was thrilled to escape from his thoughts, but terrified of being alone with Rarity once again. He walked into her dining room and saw her standing next to the table facing him. In front of her on the table was a plate of gemstones and a glass of water. He sat down at the table, making sure to sit as straight as possible, lest his manners fail in front of his love. It looks great, Rarity, but what are you going to eat? I ate before you came over, Master. Spike went to grab a ruby to eat, but before he could, Rarity picked it up. Allow me, Master. Rarity bent over the table in front of Spike and brought her face inches from his. She lifted the ruby to his lips. Here, have a bite, Master. He knew better than to argue with her and took a large bite, eating more than half of the precious stone. It's delicious, Rarity, but I'll have to take it from here. Wouldn't want you losing a finger. Oh, I know how to solve that problem, Master. She placed part of the gem in her mouth. Rarity, what do you do? In an instant, Rarity closed the gap between them and sealed his lips with a kiss. She slowly slid the ruby into his mouth with her tongue. As she pulled away, she brushed her tongue against his fangs. How was it, Master? She asked, mustering up every bit of innocence she could. Spike's face turned red as he swallowed the small piece of ruby whole. Delicious. You could still taste her in his mouth. He could feel her tongue against his fangs. He started feeling a different kind of hunger, and he knew he had to do something before it overcame him. I'm feeling rather full. I'll just clean up. Master, you really must stop doing that. I'm here to serve you, remember? Rarity picked up the plate and walked towards the sink. She smiled to herself as she let one of the gems slide off the plate and onto the floor. Whoops, clumsy me. She bent over to pick the gem up, but this time she didn't cover herself. His eyes followed Rarity as she went to pick the gem up. He couldn't believe what he was seeing though. Rarity's tail was a little too far to the left and was being treated to a full view of her marehood and ass. The image burned into his mind as she started slowly standing back up. She looked over her shoulder, and Spike was hoping that she hadn't seen him staring at her, or the dark red blush that his scales were hopefully hiding. Rarity was quite proud of herself as she noted how red Spike's face looked. She had never done something so perverted as showing off her assets to anyone before, yet here she was giving Spike's eye a full course meal of her. She found herself thrilled from being watched, and she hoped Spike had noticed just how wet she was. Rarity, I'm feeling a bit tired. Where am I sleeping? Spike asked, trying to end the night before things got any weirder. Sure, he enjoyed it, but the risk was just too great. Well, you could sleep in my bed with me, Master, Rarity suggested. No. I think I should have a bed to myself, and not yours, Spike swallowed. Of course, Master. You can stay in the guest bedroom. Let me get your bag for you. Thanks, Rarity. Anything for you, Master. Rarity led Spike upstairs to her guest bedroom next to her own room. Rarity led Spike upstairs to her guest bedroom next to her own room and over to the bed. She placed the bag on the ground next to the bed, being careful not to bend over. She wanted Spike to believe his peek earlier was accidental. Looks great. Thanks again for having me this weekend. Oh, no need, Master. I'm happy to have you this weekend. I just hope you'll be happy to have me. Rarity cooed seductively and quickly walked out the door before Spike could respond, leaving him confused about her statement. Try as he might, Spike just could not get to sleep. All he could think about was Rarity and her recent behavior. He could still taste her on his lips, feel her warmth as their lips met, and he couldn't get the image of her exposed out of his mind. He could still see every detail. Her teal triple diamond shaped cutie marks, her white furry ass, her cutie little butthole, and that incredibly tight white furry flower. He never get any sleep at this rate. He needed to relieve himself. It was her house. Hell, she was in the next room. He couldn't do that, could he? If he didn't, he'd never get any sleep. With a sigh, Spike got up and headed to the bathroom. He grabbed a few pieces of tissue paper and headed back to his temporary bed. He unbuttoned his pants, still doubting his decision, and pulled them down. Need some help with that, Master? Spike froze, literally caught with his pants down. Rarity? It's not what you think. Oh, don't worry, Master. It's perfectly natural for a young man to need to relieve stress. Rarity stepped out of the shadows in front of Spike, still wearing her maid outfit. Allow me. Rarity pushed Spike onto the bed and proceeded to pull down his boxers. Wait a minute, Rarity. No, I think we both waited long enough, Master. Now just sit back and enjoy. Rarity looked up at Spike to discover he was missing something essential to her plan. Where's your tool? It slides out from the scales near my waist. Giving in to his desire, Spike decided against fighting her. After all, he'd always dreamed of her doing something like this. Rarity breathed gently where Spike indicated and was awarded with 2 large testaments to dragon rarity. You have 2? It's a dragon thing. Well, we ate for dragons, Rarity replied with a sexy smile. Rarity pulled the top of her dress down, revealing her sizable bust and teal nipples. She brought Spike's twin dragons together and began slowly working her tongue up and around, then back down. She stopped suddenly and gave Spike a mysterious look. Then she surrounded Spike's lower shaft with her generous breasts and began sucking on his top one. She began taking more and more of Spike into her mouth, slowly at first, as she used her hands to begin squeezing and moving her boobs up and down against Spike's lower rod. She finally managed to take all of Spike's sizable length, moving back and forth with her mouth as she looked up into his eyes with her half-lidded ones. Spike was amazed he could even still think with how great he felt. He had never even imagined such a state of ecstasy was possible. He could feel her throat and mouth as she took him in. Her hot breath, moist mouth, and beautiful tight lips were driving him crazy, but add on the way she was sucking him and rolling her tongue along his shaft, and it was almost too much. He could feel the warmth from her breast, the fur against his exposed lower member, and the movements and squeezing from her hands. With no idea how he had lasted this long, he knew he wouldn't be able to hold on much longer, as he felt a familiar feeling of release from deep within. Rarity, I'm gonna come, Spike managed in a half growl, half pat. She quickened her pace as she felt her own arousal increase as the thought of having Spike come in her mouth and all over her breasts. With a powerful roar, Spike came shooting a stream of emerald fire upwards into the dark room. Rarity could feel drops of something almost scaldingly hot shoot all over her chest, but was preoccupied trying to swallow all of the sticky, salty, incredibly hot liquid pouring down her throat and into her mouth. She had never experienced something so satisfying and exhilarating as what was happening. She came to her orgasm, soaking her legs and the floor from the juices from nothing more than her own excitement and the experience of swallowing Spike's. Rarity removed herself from Spike to catch her breath and began using her tongue to clean up the rest of the hot liquid on Spike, making sure to get every last drop. Whoa, Rarity, that was amazing, Spike spoke, trying to maintain his balance with his arms. Coming face to face with Spike, Rarity swallowed the last of his cum. I'll say, Master, you weren't the only one who enjoyed themselves either. Rarity lowered her hand down to her mirror hood and slowly swept two of her fingers across, coating them in her juices. She brought her fingers up in front of Spike's face so he could clearly see her orgasm. Then she sucked her tongue and licked off her cum. Noting how sweet and salty she tasted, she kissed Spike, sticking her tongue in his mouth and moving it over every inch, effectively coating his mouth with her taste. Rarity broke the kiss and looked at Spike's face. He had a rather drunken smile and a look of disbelief. She loved it. Good night, Master. Call me if you need more relief or anything else. Rarity walked out of the room, leaving Spike in a state of euphoria. Spike collapsed backwards on the bed, exhausted and happy. This whole thing had been so amazing that it had to be a dream. He hoped he'd never wake up from it as he managed to pull up his boxers and pants. You could have sworn he heard Rarity scream his name in pleasure before falling asleep on the bed. Rarity sat on her own bed, wondering what had possessed her to do something so wrong, so unladylike, and so thrilling. She could still feel the arousal pour out of her. Her orgasm, instead of quenching her fire, had only succeeded in making it stronger. Slowly, she moved one hand down to her mirror hood as she thought of what she had done with Spike. She started slowly rubbing her fingers across it, moaning in pleasure. She could tell that she was more than ready as she inserted two fingers into herself, enjoying the feeling of being penetrated. She used her free hand to gather Spike's cum off of her chest and then lick her fingers clean, amazed by how warm it still was. She began moving the two fingers inside her in slow, circular motions. Then she started spreading them apart and bringing them back together. Still sensitive from her first orgasm, she knew it wouldn't be long until she finished. She moved her fingers straight to her moist, sensitive area and brought her cum-covered hand down to rub her clit. Spike! She screamed out in ecstasy, and as her second orgasm of the night rolled over her and soaked her sheets. She hoped Spike was still awake to hear her scream out his name. For a moment, she considered covering herself with her blankets, but instead found that the warmth in her stomach and the idea of Spike walking on her completely exposed and drenched in her own pleasure would be more than enough to keep her warm for the night. She fell asleep dreaming of all the ways she and her spiky wikey would enjoy tomorrow. The end. This shit's kinky as fuck, and I would love to be Spike at this moment. Anyways, I think this is my first fanfiction where it's Rarity, like mainly about Rarity, because I know I've done Fluttershy and Spike before, and most of the other times Spike. I think I only did one with Spike in it. Actually, two. I don't know, because some of them are like people send them to me and I try to edit it, and sometimes I read them, sometimes I don't. Anyways, guys, thank you all for watching. It's been great, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.
100,000 stories have filled my head as I look for the answer.